Welcome to lesson 67. We're going to look at another quadratic form. This one is a times parentheses x plus b squared. And we're going to learn how to solve for x using square roots. So here's our CFS. We're going to accurately use the square root methods to solve the quadratic, algebra to solve for x, and show all our work. This one's really interesting because remember, every single time we find the square root of a whole number, we are going to get a positive and negative answer. So this one is going to look very different. I'm kind of excited about it. Okay, so our goal is to find all possible values for x. I'm going to try and write this as neatly as I can. So I have space so you can see the two different pathways. So I have x minus 7 squared is equal to 64. My first step is, because x minus 7 is within a parentheses and is all squared, I'm going to find the square root of the entire expression. So this would leave me with x minus 7. Now, this is actually where my two different paths come into play. On one side, I can have x minus 7 is equal to positive 8. And in the other path, x minus 7 is equal to negative 8. So I'm putting both solutions there because I know that the square root of 64 can be positive 8 or negative 8. And now I can find the two different values for x. We still solved in the same way. We're going to add 7. So one solution is x is equal to 15. And in the other solution, x is equal to negative 1. So this looks really different because so far we've had like plus or minus 4 or plus or minus 6, where it's just the same number, just a positive and its opposite. But now we can have two different values for x. One being positive, and in this case, one positive and one negative, but one's 15 and one is a negative 1. If that does feel strange to you, and it might feel uncomfortable, please remember, like always, go back and substitute. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to go to the beginning and let's sub in for both values. So x minus 7 squared equals 64. Let's try when we have negative 1. Negative 1 minus 7 squared. And that's equal to negative 8. And that is equal to 64. And we'll try for the positive value. (15 minus 7) squared, and that's 8. And yep, 8 squared is equal to 64. So it does work. So again, the trick to this is, please make sure you're looking at both pathways when you're finding the square root of a number. We're going to find the positive and negative value, so you can have two different equations. Hit pause and jot this down into your notes. Let's model one more. You'll notice that I have a 3 on the outside of my parentheses, so I'm going to have to divide by 3. And that will leave me with x minus 5 squared is equal to 6. Now we're going to find the square root. And again, I have two pathways. However, in this case, the square root of 6, there's no other way I can simplify that. The only factors of 6 would be 2 and 3, and they're not squares, so I'm going to leave the square root of 6. But here are my two options. I have x minus 5 is equal to square root 6 as a positive, or x minus 5 is equal to negative square root 6. And now I'm going to solve. We're going to add 5 to both sides, and here I have 5 is equal to 5 square root 6. And on the other end, I end up with, I'm going to write it as negative square root 6 plus 5. So this one can actually be written in the same way, where I have plus or minus square root 6 plus 5. So I can have that one written either way. So let's hit pause and jot this one down. And this one, again, pretty interesting because we had a number that we couldn't simplify with the square root symbol, but we still had to decide what if this value was positive and what if it was negative, and how can we represent that number. So here I had both of them being added, and here I had to keep this as a negative. Okay, we have 2 here for you to practice with. Let's try the first one. So hit pause and try the first one, and then we'll do the reveal for the answer. All right, here's the answer for the first set. X is equal to 9 and negative 5. Okay, check off. If you're not exactly sure how, let's walk through this one together. So we have 2x minus 2 squared is equal to 98. First step is to divide by 2. That leaves us with x minus 2 squared is equal to 49. Luckily, that's a squared number because we're going to find the square roots. And again, this is where we have our 2 different pathways. So we have x minus 2 is equal to positive 7, or x minus 2 is equal to negative 7. In both cases, we're going to add 2. And this is where you get x is equal to 9 or x is equal to negative 5. Hit pause, and if you had an incorrect answer, try and see where the difference was and make the correction. All right, and let's look at the second case. X plus 4 squared is equal to 30. Hit pause and try to solve this one as well. I know you got this. Okay, this one was more challenging. X is equal to plus or minus the square root of 30 minus 4. All right, let's actually check this one out together and just do it so you can see how we derived this answer. So we know the first step is to find, in this case, the square root. And that leaves us with 2 different pathways. X plus 4 is equal to the square root of 30 as a positive, and x plus 4 is equal to negative square root 30. And again, if you think of all the factors of 30, 1, 30, 2, 15, 3, 10, 5, and 6, there are no square numbers, so we can't simplify this any more than we already have it. Okay, so you're going to do the same work. We're going to subtract 4. And this is how we end up with plus or minus square root 30 minus 4, so that's the positive. And this is a negative. Okay, so I can also just write it as plus or minus square root 30 minus 4. Okay, so it just takes a lot of practice, and that will continue to build your confidence in these numbers. You have all these skills. It's just putting them all together. So again, use your criteria for success to help you really get the feedback that you want and need. They're there to help you answer the questions to see, like, hey, where am I accurate? Where am I not getting it? This is where I kind of need some feedback or some support. So use that if you need it. You have your checkpoint coming up. You have your purposeful practice. Get that in and try and get those questions answered throughout the practice before you get your exit ticket. And I will see you in the next lesson, Math Marbles. Be well.